So I kind of, I think it was actually last year, Mickey had mentioned something. He had been somewhere and had a cranberry sauce that wasn't actually like the typical cranberry relish. It was a little sweet. There was something kind of horseradishy in there. And see what you can do, which is usually how a relationship works. He has something good and tells me to make it. But hey, it's working. So I played around and kind of figured out that this, I'm also super, I don't want to say lazy because that's not the right word, but super efficient with my actions. I don't want to work harder than I have to. Like if we have to, then that's fine, I'm all about it, but I can, take a shortcut. Everybody likes a shortcut. So we're going to start with just some fresh cranberries in our little food processor. And I don't know if you guys saw me trying to figure out how to work this thing, because this is the Susie Homemaker version from the house that I think I've used twice. But really we're just going to pulse these guys up. If you don't have a food processor, you can certainly do this with a knife, but again, that's effort and stuff. And this is going to go, can I?
Yeah, you can use this too, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay, so, as you can, well, hang on, let me get it off here. There we go. So just some finely chopped cranberries. And when they're fresh, they don't give off a lot of juice when you chop them up. That's more of a frozen kind of reaction. And then, really, this is so easy. We're going to take a little bit of horseradish. Exact measurements are very important. And then this is the honey mustard dressing from the restaurant. We make it ourselves in-house with some whole grain mustard and local honey. And this kind of provides the sweetness and a little bit of the backdrop. And I'm telling you, we're doing takeout Thanksgiving this year. If you guys don't feel like cooking, if this is too much work, plug.
Anybody want to buy a valve?
And this is actually what we're doing instead of the cranberry. We did a cranberry, more traditional chutney last year that was received with mixed results. And this is actually where we're going this year. So it's something simpler. And I think it's a nice, bright, different. It's something different than the normal traditional cranberry, and I'm sure you guys could all see that because we're doing it in a metal bowl behind this little shelf here. But you kind of get the idea. It's super straightforward, and we'll give you guys a chance to taste this at the end. That's that. Thanks, man. So, one of the things, my wife and I were over at a friend's having dinner the other night, and they were like, "Oh, it must be so great to have a chef for a husband." And she's like, "Sure, apart from never seeing him." But you get to have all these wonderful foods. And no, do we eat super normal, plain food? We're not having Chateaubriand, and we're real people. But she said the greatest thing about having a chef for a husband is that everything turns out exactly the way it's supposed to be. We just gotta throw the stuff away. So turkeys is one of those things that on Thanksgiving I'm not allowed to cook because I try to chef it up and make things, not plain and normal. Just why he and I get along so well. So I'm allowed to do the turkey and the dishes. That's it. So I really focused on the turkey. So one of the things, the biggest secret I found to turkey, and everybody hates dry turkey, is brining the bird ahead of time. Brining is, for those of you who don't know, it's salt, water, aromatics, a little bit of sugar. I think the ratio is it's a cup of salt for a gallon of water, and I did half a cup of sugar in that ratio, and then I threw in some fresh thyme and sage and rosemary and onions and peppercorns and all the aromatics. Bring that to a boil, let it cool down, ice it down so that it's cold when you put your turkey in it, because you don't want to parboil your turkey.
Poach the turkey.
Right into the danger zone. So you can see that this one is a little, it doesn't look like it's right out of the bag because it's been sitting in the brine for 24 hours. And for a turkey this size, 24 to 48 hours is about what you would like. It's also good to give it a little time. If you can do it a day ahead and let it sit for 10 or 12 hours in the fridge, uncovered, it helps the skin form a pellicle, which is a fancy word that means it helps it brown up better, basically. Some of the moisture evaporates and it dries out so it can sear. It also works a lot when you're smoking. It'll help the smoke adhere to it better as well.
But you know what, also, when Chris talks about aromatics, it could be herbs of any sort too. And everything is personal preference. Like I'll use bay leaves in mine and also some juniper, because I think that adds a little bit more of that holiday flavor profile. What else do you think you'd add into it?
For me, it's a lot of what you got. I mean, we're using rosemary and sage and thyme today. A lot of fall flavors. I mean, I've put a cinnamon stick in with each of these. if you like something spicy, you could throw in, you know, some ancho or chipotle peppers. If you're a non-traditionalist, you want to go a different route, you could certainly do like some dill and parsley and lemon and orange kind of zest and rind and kind of go that Mediterranean route. It's really, that's one of the things I think about cooking, that everybody follows a recipe. Well, that's what the recipe said. Well, who cares what the recipe says? What do you like? You know what I mean? And if you don't like sage and rosemary and thyme, then you could certainly go, you know, orange, and you could do some olives in there. I mean, there's really, it's Thanksgiving and it's a turkey, but that's kind of, you could do whatever you want.
You ever use wine in your brine?
I drink a lot of it when I'm cooking.
There's never any extra laying around.
You know, I just brought some just because we were doing a pick and
You actually, totally you can. It'll color the meat a little bit, and add some of that flavor to it. But that's, you know, again, if that's what you like, then all about it.
Yeah, and one other thing too, what I would have done also on this to just flavor the cranberry compote a little differently, I would have added orange zest, because that kind of is a remembrance for me of you know, childhood and growing up and that flavor profile. So, you know, we're giving you some bases in which to work from, and I think what we're trying to demonstrate the ease of it. You can do something really fresh, really creative, and then just tweak it a little bit of whatever your profile is that you prefer yourself. And I think that's what's kind of neat and magical. And like Chris says, you know, sometimes it's what you have versus what you don't have, and that kind of, you know, commands the day.
And to piggyback off of Mickey's point about ease, part of this is being ahead. You know what I mean? If we're trying to do this Wednesday night, we're all screwed, or in a bad spot. Front of house, not back of house.
I'm the front of the house,
Yes.
Chris is the back of the
And
house.
there's a reason. Okay, so now that we've talked about the turkey and kind of the brine and what's going on here, the way I like to do it is stuff in a bunch of butter up under the skin so that butter kind of helps. Turkey's a dry bird. I mean, it's a super lean, which is why everybody likes it, but it also, the reason most people don't like it, because it's dry and it gets overcooked. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna reuse our little Susie Homemaker RoboCoop here. And I'm gonna chop up some mirepoix. Now, again, this is the aromatic thing. Celery, carrot, onions are kind of a, kind of the basis. You know, the French have a word mirepoix, and it's celery, carrot, and onions, and it's kind of their base flavor of, that flavors a lot of food. One other point here, I'm kind of cheap. So, as I'm peeling this stuff to put up under here, when we roast the turkey, I'm using a kind of a 2-inch hotel pan, again, because that's what we have at the restaurant, but I like, even at home in the roasting pan, I don't use the rack, I'll just put some vegetables. Like, I'm gonna throw the onion peels and all the pieces of the stuff that don't get stuffed up under here are gonna go underneath. That's gonna, it's still got flavor, it's ugly, I know, but it's still got flavor. And then these drippings at the bottom we'll use to make gravy at the end. So that way you're not throwing anything away, you're not wasting, you know, any of the flavor. Yeah, and I've got a peeler. And actually, if you want to peel right here, so that. But basically, we're just gonna whack these guys up.
So you're gonna do a mince?
Yeah, I really want to get these guys super, super small. I did this by hand yesterday at the restaurant for the one y'all are gonna get to taste, and thought this would be a much better idea.
You only have to do it once to really know how bad it is. That's like Chris's knife is really sharp too. You only need to do it once. You should figure that out.
It's always great when you cut the boss. All right.
Yeah, you don't forget.
So. So in here, we've got our onions. And then the idea. Rest of this stuff in here, and then the celery.
And let me show you one thing too. This is not the prettiest one we had in the fleet. But we picked this one on purpose to say all these items are just hidden treasures for us, because we're going to use every bit of this. We'll stuff the turkey with it, and everything becomes usable. I mean, it's part of that. You have that look like you smelled something bad up here. You're like, oh no.
Oh, is my breath? That's sorry.
Yeah. But it is a factual thing. Some of these things are old cooking techniques that have been around for years and years. And although we scrub it down, wash it down, it's part of what makes it so incredible.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna throw a little celery in this bad boy. Let's move this up here as well. There's always one or two pieces that don't want to cooperate, just like in real life. All right, so here's our celery. And it's funny, I actually saw this at, it was the Kroger down in Newport News, next to the, off of Victory down there, next to the location down
Next to
there.
that
That
awesome
had-
restaurant down there.
Yeah, next, what is it? Oh, it's 2nd Street down there too. But they had it already kind of small diced as well. Alright, and then last one.
You mean they already had it made up?
Yeah. Why didn't I see that 20 minutes ago? Alright, so now we're going to do our carrots. Maybe. The chef can. Gotta practice using this thing next time. So, celery, carrot, and onions are in there, and now I'm going to add some fresh herbs. I'm going to do a lot of sage because that's kind of the flavor of Thanksgiving, and I'm going to add a little bit of fresh thyme, and all these stem ends and stuff are going into the bottom of the pot. Fresh rosemary, and then this we're just going to chop up. Then our herbs. All right.
So that was rosemary, thyme, and sage.
Correct. And now I'm gonna get some gloves on. Oh, the ones right in front of me. I'll just use these. It's a good thing I'm cute. That's what my mama told me anyway.
She's got to.
What do you think? The butter?
It's in the freezer.
Okay.
So what we did is to express this whole process along, we went ahead and put it in the microwave, and then it got really liquidy, and we had to put it in the freezer, because that's how that goes.
Because somebody forgot the melted butter, or the softened butter.
Yeah, so,
All right, so
you can see what this looks like now. This might be a little bit looser, but it'll be actually perfect for this part of the project.
We'll make it work.
You want all of it?
Nah.
Have as much as went in?
Okay, so now I'm just gonna basically get all up in here and mix this together. And it's not the most attractive looking thing, but, all right, let's see, can we maybe move this up front so they can see what I'm doing? You
Sure.
want to set it up on the counter?
Uh-huh.
All right, and I'm just gonna come around here, so. Anybody been to a Gallagher show before? Y'all bring- Okay, so if you go in from this neck end with your hand, and you can kind of wedge your way in between the skin and the breast. And then kind of looks like aliens.
So you're basically trying to,
Make a pocket.
a lot of great faces up on the front row. It's a lot of
Aren't you glad I came around to show you guys this up close? Got a cart, we can wander around the room.
All right, but this, you're really trying to break the membrane between the actual meat of the breast and also the skin. And so,
And then we're just gonna start manhandling this butter mixture. And I'm sorry that it's not prettier, but it's gonna taste pretty.
but if you think about what we're getting ready to do, so many years what everyone used to do is they used to butter the outside of the skin, and most of your skin on humans and animals is there to repel anything that gets on it. So anyhow, what we've learned to do is go ahead and put all that goodness and flavor, and everyone loves butter, and marry that together, and then put that over top of the breast meat. So when this all cooks down, it renders itself right through the bird, and it's what makes the difference. This is the money shot right here of how this.
This is much easier to do on a cutting board than down in a bucket.
Chris will not be a plastic surgeon anytime soon. This will not work.
All right.
Does Does the brining help keep the skin a little bit more elastic? You talked about it drying out a little bit in the refrigerator, but I know I've tried that in the past and ended up ripping the skin or, you know.
That's a good question.
I think what happens is by what Chris said and taking it out of the brine and letting it rest for about 12 hours, I think that's what ends up allowing it to kind of rescind itself a little bit and have a little bit more elasticity. Yeah, but you can see this guy is looking. Well, you know, you got to work him a little bit at this point in time, and just move that butter and the herbs and all that around in the bird as well.
All right, so that's
more of the same.
That's the top of the bird. Now for the inside, we're gonna chuck it. And actually, I'm gonna wash my hands first. That's still grossness all over my arm.
And that's all, and that's all part of the skin.
Yeah.
Look at this guy
And
now.
what that kind of does is helps add some fat to that breast meat. It's almost like basting it for you. It's kind of a time release base.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the rest of these, the celery and carrot and onions.
And what we don't have today, which I put in mine as well, is I usually take an apple and dice it up. And then also an orange as well. I'll go ahead and squeeze off most of the juice and just add the rind to it, cut it up in quarters or eighths or whatever, and then add that, incorporate that with the stems and all the discard of what we weren't using, the skins of the onions and.
Onion, please.
Do you ever take a whole onion and put it in the turkey itself?
Well, I would consider doing that, but that leaves less room for all those other good things I mentioned. So I like a better myriad of those items in there, kind of get a better cross section of flavors than just that.
Okay. So,
But if you like onion, I think that's a good idea.
but I would suggest maybe not doing a whole one, just so you can get more in there and let it give up. If you kind of like this one, I kind of quartered or eighth, I guess, and that gives you a little more room. And since we filled up the top, we're going to fill up the bottom now. At our house, we'll throw some oranges and lemons in there, limes, citrus, like Mickey said, apples and oranges. I'm throwing, celery, carrot, onions, the herbs, all this stuff. Not that we're going to eat this, but this will kind of steam and roast as the bird's cooking and help that steam will have flavor and it'll help flavor everything around it.
Chris, do you ever salt or pepper? I usually salt or pepper the bird's cavity inside using.
Since we brined it, I don't really
Oh, that's
need
right.
to.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind
That's true.
of, I think that did a better job than I will do. And then any of the stuff that doesn't fit in the cavity just goes right in this pan. And, all right, put this guy up here. And I'm going to transfer Bertha from the resting place to it.
How many pounds is that?
A lot more than I thought it was. Never made 20 pounds look so heavy.
Boy, you sure made that look like.
Thanks. But another little trick is taking these arms. It's been a long weekend. And kind of tucking it back under. You've heard of the chicken wing wrestling move? We're going to kind of do the same thing here on both sides, and that'll help get the bird. These will rest on the stuff at the bottom, kind of help get this guy up.
Kind of laying on his elbows, kind of getting them up.
Right, so that way
Real
you're
proud.
getting more of the bird up in the air, so the heat's getting around it more than coming through the pan, so this will help it get more brown.
Do you put stuffing in the bird while you're cooking it?
I do not.
Why not?
Okay, growing up, that was when the FDA, my mom taught home ec, and they had always done that, but then when she realized that, people had gotten sick, like, we're never doing that again, so we just never did. It was, you don't cuss and you don't put stuffing in the bird. And we always had it on the side. I've never done that. Doesn't mean it's wrong. But the thought for me is if you're going to have to cook, because the problem with putting the stuffing in the bird is you have to get it up to 165. Health department, so you're killing out of the danger zone, killing all the bacteria. Well, if the dead center of this is 165, this is probably going to be 175, 180, which is, and you're bordering on overcooking it. You know what I mean? So if you hit it just right, you're golden. But if it goes a little long, then it could tend to dry out. If it goes a little short, then it's a little undercooked.
So that's what happens when you get dry turkey, which
It's
I don't
overcooked.
like.
Same thing with chicken breast.
They let it, so the surface is getting to 175.
Yeah.
How many times have we had people have had dry turkey?
Well, and that's with turkey and chicken especially. You can't serve it medium well. you know what I mean? But if it's overdone, it's almost harder to cook that perfectly than it is a burger medium rare, medium. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of
So you're saying to get a good thermometer and make sure everything's at 155 and don't overdo it?
If you pull it out at 155, you'll be golden because it'll continue to cook as you pull it out of the oven. It'll coast up to 165. 145 to 150 is usually where we pull stuff because we're usually doing, 5 sheet pans of meatloaf at a time. So there's a little bit more residual heat with those pans cooling together.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're pulling it out 145 to 155, I think you'll be golden.
Get a good thermometer.
And let it sit for 15, 20 minutes. You want to let it rest. As you're cooking, the juices and everything's kind of moving around. Probably not quite like that, but it's moving around inside the bird. And like, if you've taken the steak off the grill and cut it, as soon as you did it, oh, it's a perfect medium rare. You come back like 5 minutes, it's well done now. Well, when you cut it, all that blood still, or blood's probably not the right word, juices, flavor, the liquid flavor is moving around in there. If you let it, okay, liquid flavor sounds way better. Even if it's less accurate. But if you let it sit, something this size, probably 10, 15, 20 minutes, let it sit, and all those juices will kind of slow down and they'll settle back out into the right spot. And so when you cut it.
But that also gives you time, like what we'll do is end up, you'll have all this butter that'll leach through after it's gone through the bird and be in the bottom pan. I'll once or twice go ahead and hydrate the top of the bird. Once would be at minimum, usually twice is really great if you can get some of that butter back on top, just to kind of add, back to the bird. But don't forget when it's resting, then that's your time to go ahead and make the gravy anyway. So you got plenty to keep you entertained. It's almost a good measure to be able to allow that to sit for a moment while you're working and doing some other things.
I've got a good question for many of us. I don't like white meat. I like dark meat. Any suggestions about making sure you get some good dark meat? Everything is the stuffing the chicken and roasting the outside, but I'm more interested in myself is the dark meat.
Well, by the natural process of what's going to happen when this cooks, the dark meat on this is going to be smack your mama good. I mean, it's outstanding. It's just because you've done all the right things. So it's
and the dark meat tends to have more fat in it, like naturally occurring inside the meat. Not kind of think about marbling, but on a much smaller, finer scale, which allows it to just. I like dark meat too because it's juicier, it's got more flavor. That's why it's got more fat, which is why it's harder to overcook dark meat. You know what I mean? But I feel if you're doing the same thing, if you're pulling it out at 145, 155, it should be through the uprights, and that's the beauty of brining it is you're getting the whole bird. There's not this part that got seasoned and this part got too much. It's almost idiot proof. I mean, but we could find somebody who screw it up, I'm sure. So this is where we got to this point last night. Mickey came by and grabbed the turkey this morning and threw it in the oven. And through the magic of television, and thanks for the help with that.
Perfect.
And Mickey did that, so.
You covered it with foil when you were cooking.
Just at the very end, usually at the house, we'll preheat the oven to 350. I'll put it in there for 30 minutes, drop it to 300. And then depending on, if you read the package on the side of the bird, it'll give you the time frame. But I think this one was 3.5 to 4.5 hours. We did right at 3.5.
Yeah.
And it's
For about 25, 30 minutes, and then we backed it down to 310 and just let it low and slow it. Low and slow.
So you say a 14-pound bird be about 3.5 hours?
I would think it probably on the closer to 3.
We'd always
If you
say-
Google Butterball, butterball.com, every year I have to look because I don't remember because I know it's on Butterball. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's only 2 brain cells, dude.
Well, by thermometer, you say 155.
Yep.
And where would you?
You want to go in right around the thigh, kind of in this area because that's the thicker part of the bird.
Okay.
Another way you can tell is if you kind of grab this leg, and if you can see how that's just giving it up, it's done. That's an easy. For me, that's the easiest way to tell is if you can kind of wiggle these arms, and if it's giving it up, then you're good to go.
We're back to arms.
Legs, wings, whatever.
How much wine?
It's a good thing I can cook, isn't it?
What's that?
How much wine did he drink?
There you are.
None yet. That's the problem. This is me all. And you wonder who got the better end of this deal at 12, 13 years.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Most of some of the directions I've seen on Butterball says if you check the breast for one temperature and then the thigh for another, and it's got 165 for the dressing.
That's and that's because.
What do you use?
Well, and here's the thing: the same bird's in the same oven. I only want to cook this part to this tip. That's kind of silly to me, because it's all, the stuffing's on the inside and it needs to be 165 if you're cooking it in the bird, just for health safety reasons of drippings getting in there. Though salmonella doesn't exist in turkeys, it only grows on chicken ovaries, so it's not, I don't think salmonella is a big thing, but I'm still not trying to serve, medium rare turkey or say it's okay. But if it's inside there and you're gonna eat it, it needs to get to 165. Even if you cook it like this and then scoop it out and reheat it, which seems like a giant pain.
You know what I think I'm going to suggest to you? Once you try sample this, you won't be cooking your stuffing inside the bird anymore because you're going to realize you'll want to do it the way we're doing it. That's why we do it. That's why we do it this way, because so much of that goodness is you're working together to make the center of the plate perfect. And I can control the stuffing in lots of different ways. Frankly, at our house, a lot of voices at the house, and they like them some ways. I make them 3 stuffings, but I start with a base and I doctor them up, and so then it looks like, we've got a bounty of things, but I started with a base and doctored up the 3 of them, and I can control that. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, but if you're resting your turkey for 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That stuffing you can take out of the turkey, put it back in the oven and let that cook.
Yeah.
After we take it out of the refrigerator, do we let the bird come up to room temperature, or
You can throw it right
do
in
you
there.
put it right in?
If you preheat the oven, you'll be fine. Because, for me, and this is, when you're the boss but you're not always there, you try to figure out
Bulletproof.
thank you, that was the word I was looking for. The bulletproof way to do things. Because I know if it's in here, and the cooler's working, then it's at 10. You know what I mean? If you tell the guys to pull it out and set it on the table for 30 minutes,
It could be an hour.
and then they get busy, it could be all night. It could be all night. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't know. So I'm a big fan. Take it straight out of the oven. If the oven's preheated, you can go straight from the fridge to the oven. You don't want to go from the cold fridge to a cold oven, because then it kind of, preheat the oven and take it right out of the fridge.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with sitting it on the counter and letting it come up to temp 2, but you're not going to gain a whole lot you're not going to save, 30 minutes of cooking time.
I've never brined a turkey or anything in a bag and then just turn it over every so often in the refrigerator.
We actually-
How do you do it?
Well, we have the benefit of having giant walk-in coolers, so we've got a tad more space than
I
y'all
don't
do.
have that. They
Um,
make them that big.
We actually had a 5-gallon bucket that we use for most of our soups and sauces and stuff, that we were able to do 1 per 5-gallon bucket.
But that's gonna be in a refrigerated area.
Correct. Well,
So-
we have the walk-in, so it's a lot easier.
I have that. That's what I'm asking.
You could
Yeah,
probably,
they-
you know what I would suggest actually, and this is pulling it on the fly, if you lined like a milk crate or something with a couple of garbage bags, and don't skimp on the because you don't want it to leak. But that would be my fear is you can do it in a bag, but if the bag's got a pinhole in it, or if it comes untied, then you're picking brine up out of the fridge, which.
But what we do, and they sell them at Williams-Sonoma, they sell brining bags, and they're very, very heavy duty, and they're Ziploc, super heavy duty, and you can put that just even on a platter or anything once you get it all set up and brine. You want to kind of work the air out of that so that you're ensured more that there's more contact of the fluid to the bird and the protein. Another way to be able to do that easily, believe it or not, is fill up your kitchen sink, put the bird in the bag, put the bag and the bird in there, and that forces all the air out of the bag, and then you can Ziploc it really easy, and then you know that you've kind of got the air out of it.
And then it's into the refrigerator for 24 hours, you said?
24 to 48.
And so if you're doing chicken, you can brine chicken and all sorts of other proteins as well. But I always brine wild game and for 24 hours. For pheasants, ducks, or anything, and really night and day difference on the product.
This is another stupid question. Is it thawed when you put it in the brine?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so now the other part of where we're at is we're going to show you how we would carve the turkey at our homes. It's a little bit different than what you traditionally see. Someone standing over and giving a slice by slice. I think the way we do it yields a little bit better.
And I'm so good at talking and giving you toast, as you guys have seen. I'm cheating a little bit. We're using a sheet pan with a cutting board in it to kind of catch any runoff, especially since this is in our house. So I'm just going to move Bertha here.
Should we get up?
Bertha too?
I'm thinking about it.
Ooh, it's a little toasty still. All right, so now this is the part of the, and I don't know how to show you this without dumping it in your lap, but in here, you can kind of see where all the vegetables got roasted. They're kind of cooked, they're giving up their flavor, and we've got all this juice that goes right in the gravy, and it's phenomenal.
And don't forget, most of that juice is butter. Not such a bad thing.
Right.
And Chris, we didn't address also, because like when you go ahead and you get your turkey, it comes with all these other pieces and parts in the cavity.
Giblets.
Yeah, yeah. So, but like Chris used some of that in the flavoring of the base of what he worked on here that actually used.
And usually when I'm making it at home, it was a rush, it was a busy weekend, and the giblets got lost. But usually they'll go right in the pan and get cooked along with all this. And when I'm... What?
All good.
His dry cleaner loves me. And when I'm done, after we cut all the meat and stuff off the bone, after the end of the Thanksgiving meal, I'll come back and pull all the extra meat and take all the bones, all this stuff left here, and put a stock on overnight. Cold water, bring it to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, let it sit, let it simmer for 4 to 12 hours, and you've got turkey stock that's phenomenal. So that way we threw away the wrapper.
That's a beautiful.
You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that's exciting about cooking is when you can make it, good and actually, kind of cost effective.
So we're going to deconstruct this turkey for you, show you how we would do it at our homes. And another thing that we do too is, and it's so simple if you're trying to impress folks, just go out to your backyard or walk around, just snip off some like juniper, or now is a beautiful time with the leaves. You can grab all sorts of leaves off the tree. It's kind of great, kind of decorative piece, or like we use a lot of times some of the raw ingredients, whether it's sage or the rosemary, just decorate the plate as well. You'll see what we end up doing.
All right. But, okay, so to start with, I always start with the breast because it's kind of up top and it's the part that's wobbly. As you know, breasted chickens are built the same. There's that keel bone that runs right down the middle. So I'm just going to start by making a slice there. And usually your knife will find one side. It's rare that it lands right on it. It'll find one side or the other. And you can kind of follow it down. When God made all the animals, He made it really easy for us to cut them apart because the way they're built tells us kind of how to cut them. You know what I mean? If you follow the bones that are there. All right, so I don't know if I can see if I can do this backwards. But I've made my first slice and kind of found the bone, followed it all the way down. There's another bone that runs this way, kind of down at an angle, so I'm going to use this.
That's where the wishbone is.
Wishbone,
And I wish it comes out good. But then I'm going to kind of find that bone and come across, and then kind of come back, and just wow, that's warm. 2 gloves is a good tip if it's hot. You just kind of want to follow that bone, and it's okay to scrape up against it.
You guys, if you want to get up and go look at it.
Yeah, come on up.
That's what I do.
Oh.
Get the ice water ready.
But as you can see, this becomes a whole piece of muscle, and it makes it really easy to portion it from this point on. Frankly, this might even be a little too hot to be handling right now. It should have been sitting a little bit longer, but due to the nature of trying to speed this thing along, we're working on it. One of us is working on it.
Doesn't feel a thing. It only hurts for a minute.
Asbestos fingers. Oh my God.
And you can kind of see, this one is a tad under, again, road game. But you can kind of see, there's still, as good as I did, there's still some meat to be had on here that we can scrape off later on. Once you get the breast off, it's real easy to, let me slice that.
Yeah, we'll just slice it and stay away from this side. Yeah.
And the other part about having this butter underneath there is you're almost guaranteed to have the crispiest, butteriest skin.
Butteriest.
Butteriest,
Remember that
that's
one.
a thing.
For the holidays.
If you have leftover nice chunks of turkey like that, how long should you keep it in the refrigerator before it starts changing flavor?
Now, that's a loaded question because it depends on so many variables.
If you ask the health department, the health department says 7 days from, I don't know if birth, right, from production. You've got 7 days. If it's held, under 45 degrees, like most fridges are.
I'm kind of one of these people that's 2 days old, I start noticing the difference and don't care for it.
Well, again, it depends on like if you're handling it properly along the way and what's your temperature, how quickly do you get it in the
It is
fridge.
2 days old. You know what I mean? So when you reheat it,
I'll call you back.
you're essentially you're cooking it again. So it's, especially with a breast meat or something that's kind of dry, it'll just be dry. It's
When we can buy turkeys for 27 cents a pound, I mean, it's nice to cook an extra one if you can keep it. For me, I don't want to, just thinking of
I got a 14-pound turkey before. Wow. That's a lot. Everything else was a lot more than the same.
We had a little bit of an operational issue when we got here today. So this being one of the clubhouse and it hadn't had a lot of heavy use, the oven wasn't perfectly ready for us. It just needed to get burned off, so I didn't put the turkey in the oven here. I ran it back to my house and put it in. So we lost some time coming back and forth. Because when I came in, I was like SWAT to put it in the preheated oven like it was all ready for me, but it just wasn't ready to receive us. So cooked it back at the house and then brought it over here, but I came over here and cleaned out the oven and got it prepared. I mean, that's kind of what we do in the restaurant business. We're just real.
It seldom goes the way it's supposed to.
Yeah,
never does.
but no, the point is like we're real persnickety because we have an obligation to be safe in what we do, and so hot food hot, cold food cold, keeping chemicals away from the food and just handling things properly, that's a big deal. And so we place a high value on it. So, even on the product that you guys will try today, very comfortable about it, but it's some of the pieces are undercooked that we're not gonna allow you to try. But anyhow, just trying to give you some narrative on some things. If we're at our house and we were entertained, we leave that bird in the oven because if the temperature wasn't right and didn't hit the thresholds, that's what it is.
So you can kind of see, like, I know it's a carcass, so it's not the most attractive thing, but there's still lots of meat on here. And a little known trick, on the back of these guys, there's a piece of meat called the oyster. Dude, it's the best piece of meat on the chicken or the turkey or whatever. I mean, it's awesome.
where is this again?
It's
Yeah.
on the back.
Two little pockets.
And if you flip it over and look at the spine, there's like 2 little balls once it's cooked. It's the best piece of meat on the bird.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. I mean, I don't know if it's like a jowl or something, but these are actually cooked.
And so on this, what we would do is Chris would go ahead and throw that whole thing in the pot with all the little scraps, and that we would steep all this.
Yeah, and actually, I'm still going to. I love making stock. But any of the stuff that falls out,
Yeah, all
all
that
the
would go
stuff
in
that's
there
on the
too.
innards, this one had some citrus fruit
Yeah,
inside
yeah,
it.
the citrus.
I would leave that out of the stock that you're making. But any of this other, the giblets, the neck, the runoff, the butter, all of that has flavor.
Take out the veggies.
No, leave the veggies in there.
Take out the fruit.
Yeah, take out the fruit, but everything else is golden. And it makes, dude, your house will smell awesome. Like it's the best air freshener in the world.
Smells good now.
Chris, grab that horseradish in there. Throw the knife I got here.
Careful, that's nice.
So for those that like drumsticks, you just put the drumstick on the plate and say, go at it?
Yeah, it's kind of, there's a lot of tendons in those drumsticks. It's hard to cut it off the bone and not get it.
Right.
It's almost, kind of Fred Flintstone style. Yeah.
Do some people ask you to carve the drumstick? There's like splinters in there.
Right. I mean, but then again, I was gonna say if you cook it far enough, it'll almost fall apart.
Okay.
But at that point, you got sawdust for the breast. It's such a tight.
You know how to eat a drumstick, and that's it.
You put the peat, the onion on the bottom.
in the bottom, yes, sir.
How can you keep?
You don't. You don't. This would all get. So if I'm making gravy, we've got a little colander that fits on top of the gravy pot, or the pot that we used to make gravy. It's not specifically a gravy pot. But then you kind of pour this through there, so just the liquid comes through and it pulls out all the solids. But you got all that liquid is flavored with all the vegetables and stuff that are in there. So that stuff never gets eaten. It just gets kind of it's used and tossed out. Very American.
Yeah, but you got all the flavor out of it.
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of what we're here for is the flavor, not just. All right, what can I do more than?
Just gonna get a photo out for.
Martha Stewart's got nothing on this guy.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
What's your hand?
Mine are fine. Yeah, it only hurts for a little bit.
I forgot about it already. It's all good. You get used to it.
It's so funny. After, the other night I was dropping something in the fryer and it spit back and got, I was like, ah, I'm like, that's gonna leave a mark. And then I got home and I was like, oh wait, I burned myself. Where's that blood? There's nothing there. It just, just after a while. It's amazing what the human body can get used to.
Oh, let me see.
Mine never looks so pretty.
So this.
Did it all wrong.
Well, we've kind of rushed things today, but anyhow, it looks a whole lot better usually. I'll come to the back, and then we'll actually portion up some things for everybody. But it's just simple, everyone can do what. Now that you have the secrets,
Oh my God.
I always do it in the kitchen because I don't have to make these, I don't have to keep a straight face when I'm carving it and screwing up out front. You know what I mean? I'm a big fan of doing it in the back and.
Well, that looks beautiful. I've never seen a turkey,